Well, what do we have here? It's chapter 4. 4 is kind of an unlucky number if you live in Japan, and I live in Japan. In this chapter, we're going to have a quick look through 8 principles for language teachers that the authors of our textbook see as vital for success in teaching. Last week, I went a little over my 10-minute time limit. Let's see if we can make up for that here. I really don't like my chances though. Now, we aren't going to get into each principle too deeply. Each one could have its own chapter, and in fact, the last one does have its own chapter. But by the end, I hope you will have a basic understanding of each to the level that you'll be able to have some good discussions based on the topics I will raise throughout the video. So we do have a lot of topics to cover, but luckily we don't have 70 principles to cover, as Bernard Splonsky has suggested there are. As I said, I'll be keeping it pretty simple, so make sure you are reading through your textbook as you watch this video so you'll be able to follow along more easily. Alright, are you ready? Okay, first is automaticity. When you ride a bike, are you thinking to yourself, left foot down, right foot up, left foot up, right foot down? Of course not. That's because for most of us, riding happens automatically. Our textbook talks about music. In my case, I played the piano for 10 years, and there were a couple of songs I practiced many times. Even now, I can play them without thinking, albeit not very well, but I can still play them. The same goes for language. If you are able to speak fluently, without thinking too much about the forms of language, that is the grammatical functions and phonology, etc., yet notice our mistakes when we make them, then we can increase the automaticity of our language use. I often encourage students to try to think to themselves in the target language when they get a chance. If you are on a train or walking to school, look around and describe the things you can see in the language you are studying. But remember, just describe them to yourself. If you start speaking out aloud, people might think you are a little strange. Do you have any ideas to encourage automaticity? Now, automaticity was quite straightforward, but transfer is a little more complicated. Put very simply, transfer refers to the differences between one's first language and the target language. One of the key words I would like you to notice in this section, which you'll see on page 71, is schema. Schema refers to our background knowledge about a subject. If you don't know anything about pineapples in your first language, how are you going to understand what someone is saying about pineapples in the target language? So differences and similarities between one's first language and the target language influence the learning success. Can you think of some differences between your students' first language and the target language that may cause them difficulties in their studies? Reward. We all love presents, right? I know I do. But when it comes to language learning, there are different kinds of presents or rewards that are given for our efforts and accomplishments. On page 72, our textbook talks about Skinner, who said that the anticipation of a reward is what drives animals, including humans, to learn. There is a really interesting video on YouTube of Skinner's experiment. Search Skinner Pigeons Read. It's just under 4 minutes. Check it out. We'll refer to this in class. On the other hand, though, the self-determination theory by Edward Deci and Richard Ryan suggests that humans work hardest when they enjoy what they are doing and are having fun. So what do you think? A lot of teachers like to give stickers as rewards in their language classes, especially with younger learners. Do you think that giving stickers as rewards is a good idea? Let's have a good discussion about this in class. Do you remember in the last video when I mentioned that we should be reflecting and thinking about how we can do better next time? This is what I was talking about. Self-regulation is about making purposeful efforts to learn and improve your proficiency in the target language. I don't mean just doing the work your teacher tells you to do. It goes beyond that. It's about going out on your own and finding ways to improve. Doing this can help you and or your students take a large step towards becoming autonomous. And when you can get your students being autonomous in their studies, you have done a great job as a teacher. A lot of students do, however, need guiding to get this far. Do you have some ideas to encourage self-reflection among language students? I'm struggling with time, aren't I? Soldier on. When it comes to identity and investment, we need to be asking ourselves, who is the English-speaking me? The point here is that it is not what do I want to be, but who do I want to be as an English speaker. A lot of people change when they speak the target language, and that is okay. We need to develop an image of ourselves as speakers of the target language, then invest the time and effort to realize that image. So my question here, and it's a little personal, is what image do you have of yourself as a speaker of the target language in 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, and 10 years? Have a think about it. Okay, 3 to go. Interaction. There was, is, a really famous researcher in language learning motivation, Robert Gardner. He asked the question, how can students be willing to learn and speak the target language if they don't like the people who speak that language? And it is such an important question. The willingness to communicate and interact with people in the target language is vital for success. Plenty of researchers, such as Peter McIntyre, who is at Cape Breton University in Canada, and Tomoko Yashima at Kansai University in Osaka. Hi Yashima sensei, if you're listening, I'm sure you're not though. Among many others, have worked to share many ways in which teachers can help students lower their anxiety to use a foreign language and be willing to have a go. So that leads me to another question. What kind of anxieties do you think students might have in language learning? Our 7th principle is one that I feel is neglected too much in language classes. Having an understanding of other cultures is vital if you want to be successful in learning the language of that culture. As was said earlier, if we don't appreciate and like the people of another culture, how are we going to learn their language? Yet so many teachers ignore this part of language learning. How about your culture? For a discussion, if we have time, I'd like you to rank the top 5 parts of your culture that you would like students learning your language to be aware of. Then finally we have agency, which, with its own chapter coming up next, is seen as the most important of the 8 principles by our authors, as it kind of acts as the almighty principle covering all the others. The definition by Duff, and given to us on page 84, is perfect and says that agency is people's ability to make choices, take control, self-regulate, and thereby pursue their goals as leading potentially to personal or social transformation. Basically, when students feel a sense of agency, they feel control over their learning. We'll talk about this more in the next chapter, so I'll leave it at that for now. Okay, I know there was a lot in that chapter, but I tried to keep it as brief as I could. Make sure you watch the video a couple of times and review your textbook. Be ready for our regular quiz, and I'll see you in class. Ciao.